If you're listening to this and already feeling behind on your financial goals, like January didn't quite go the way you wanted, you are not alone. You're not broken, you're not lazy, and we promise you are not the only one.
Especially if you work in healthcare. This feeling hits much harder. Long shifts, emotional exhaustion, decision fatigue, and all of that makes it really easy to feel like I already messed this up.
And there's actually a name for this moment. It's called Quitter's Day, which is wild. It's usually the second Friday of January, and this is when most people abandon either their New Year's goals or New Year's resolutions. The Detroit Free Press recently highlighted this phenomenon, and we knew we had to talk about it in this episode. And you might be wondering, what are you doing talking about it in the middle to end of February? And it's because we know most of you have completely given up on any financial goals you've made, and we're here to make that change.
And we know finances are almost always one of the top New Year's goals for everyone. And it's actually also one of the first goals people give up on.
And today's episode exists for one main reason. This is the moment most people quit, but this is also the best moment to reset. You can still use that momentum from New Year's and still get on a great track.
And we're definitely not New Year's resolution kind of people. We definitely plan to think more long term and think over the course of a year.
Yeah, I feel like New Year's resolutions can be really lofty, really unrealistic goals. But again, we are big goal setters, and having specific disciplines and specific systems, as we'll talk about in a little bit, is paramount to being able to achieve financial freedom.
So, if you're a healthcare professional who feels behind financially already, this episode is your permission to start again without any guilt.
Today, we're breaking down why do healthcare professionals hit Quitter's Day harder than most, and how to restart and reset your financial goals by focusing on systems and habits, not motivation. Motivation is emotional and circumstantial, but habits are stable, repeatable, and when set right, these habits and systems even show up when you're exhausted after a crazy week. So welcome to the Fiscal Clinician Podcast, where we help healthcare professionals to build wealth, crush debt, and achieve financial independence. I'm Josh Sheen, your host.
And I'm Devon McCourt, your co-host. And we're both very excited to talk about goals, systems, and how to improve your financial well-being.
Yeah, so let's talk about why Quitter's Day is so challenging often for healthcare professionals specifically. And it's really not because healthcare professionals lack discipline. You see all of them going throughout rigorous programs, rigorous schooling. And so what is it about this that makes quitting so easy, Devon, when it comes to our finances?
I think also it comes from our burnout as clinicians. And surveys of the American Physical Therapy Association actually say that about 50% of physical therapists have some kind of burnout at some point in their careers. That percentage has been up to 85% in some cases. And also, our turnover rate as PTs across all settings is around 12%. And so, honestly, we're quitting because we are physically exhausted and also emotionally exhausted from working with so many clients.
It is challenging. My wife is in healthcare too, and we frequently talk about how challenging it is. Not even the part of just healing people and helping people, but dealing with challenging personalities. If you're in healthcare, you're going to deal with that. And I think part of it is the profession is built on delayed gratification. If you're a graduate student, like a PT, OT, you've done years of school, years of training, lots of debt, and money is often pushed aside with the mentality of, I'll get to that eventually, but not right now.
And then January hits and you're motivated, but you want to get your finances together. And 2 weeks later, a brutal week happens in the clinic. Maybe the clinic is overwhelmed with patients because it's the start of the new year, right? They have new deductibles, and suddenly the time for focusing on your monthly budget feels impossible to reach.
Yeah, and here's where we love the book Atomic Habits. If you haven't checked out this book, it's written by James Clear. It lays out some amazing practicals for how do you set goals, how do you make and build your life around systems that actually work. One of the things that James Clear says in the book is habits exist to reduce cognitive load. When you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, your brain looks for the easiest path. And sometimes that's just ducking out and not doing anything with your finances. But we want to show you a clear system and path to help automate and make your finances happen naturally.
And we definitely hit that point of cognitive overload as physical therapists. We're constantly thinking, we're constantly rebuilding and planning new plans of care. And so, if your financial plan requires constant decisions, willpower, or extra energy, it's not going to survive the healthcare life.
It's often not a motivation issue, it's a system issue. Because, like we talked about before, motivation often waxes and wanes with emotions and with life changes. And not surprisingly, surveys show the most common New Year's goal is saving more money. And according to this article, the Detroit Free Press article, it's about 21% of New Year's goals are people saving money from a survey of about 1,050 people. But goals without systems fade fast. The goal of I want to save more money is a horrible goal. There's no actionable part of it, there's no specifics. And so we want to talk about SMART goals. Now, sorry if I'm bringing some PTSD to people back in PT school. I know when I had to create SMART goals when I was doing it for patients in school, I hated it. But it is really a great way to create specific goals to make sure that you're actually heading towards them. So, what does SMART stand for? SMART. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And these are what we want your goals to be.
Here's the reframe we want you to hear as well. Quitter's Day isn't failure, it's time for constructive feedback.
In healthcare, if we have a patient where they have a challenging case and the treatment plan isn't working, we don't just give up on that patient. We retry a different strategy. We try a new treatment plan. We try a new modality, a new joint mobilization, whatever it might be. The same with your finances. If your system hasn't been working, then we need to make a new one to trial.
And remember, we also update goals during the plan of care, right? So
Yep.
as we update our goals in plan of care, think to your financial goals and aspirations that they also need to be updated.
There's so many great one-liners in this book, Atomic Habits, and James Clear says something really powerful in this book. He says, goals give you momentary success, while systems create lasting change.
Goals create this either I won or I failed type of mindset. And we want to have that mindset where we are looking at it from a win-win perspective every single time.
And so that's why creating systems to help you is so important. And so the great thing about systems is they don't care about how exhausted or how emotional you're feeling. They automatically happen.
Yeah, and reflection's like always important, right? Even if you didn't meet that goal or within that specific time frame that you might have set, take a look at why and look at maybe we need to just update this goal, but I always think that it's okay to adjust. So if January didn't really go how you planned, that doesn't mean just quit. It means adjust the system.
Yeah, let's talk about financial systems that actually work. And let's talk about goal setting because goal setting still is important and your goals kind of work together with your systems. So, first, stop building generic goals. You need to build identity around your goals. What does that mean? Many people relate bad money behaviors with a bad money identity. I'll give you some examples here. So, people often say about themselves, I'm bad with money, or I was raised XYZ with money. I don't know anything about investing. These are kind of identity issues, and it's unfortunately downplaying yourself of what you're unable to do or what you don't know.
Many families, they're living paycheck to paycheck, right? And so associating yourself with that system is already going to be a downfall. If you're raised in that boat, try to think of like, how do I move forward and change our whole family dynamics and our whole family wealth plan for future generations? In Atomic Habits, they like to talk about identity-based habits, right? So it's not about what you want, but who you're becoming. It definitely reminds me of a famous quote by Reinhold Niebuhr. And it's essentially is change is the essence of life. Be willing to surrender who and what you are for who you could become. So every financial good habit, whether small or large, is a vote for that new you and a new identity.
Yeah, so let's give some examples of how you could turn around the identity statements. For example, instead of saying I'm bad with money, try saying I'm becoming someone who's intentional with my money. It completely changes the perspective. Instead of saying I wasn't raised knowing anything about money, say every day I'm building the financial knowledge I wish I had when I grew up. Instead of I don't know anything about investing, you could say I'm the type of person who learns to make my money work for me. Save more money is not a plan. It's a dream without any action. And so we also want to give you an example of some goals that you could make that are very smart. So here's an example of one about investing. For example, you could say, I'm going to put $200 into my Vanguard Roth IRA per month starting in March, and I'm going to automate this from my checking account.
It's such a great way, even though it does give me a little PTSD. Josh, thanks a lot. I definitely like that smart approach, right? It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. We brought up that acronym in physical therapy for a reason because it doesn't just apply to that environment, it also applies to a life environment, right? And so we tend to underestimate like how much our environment also drives our behavior.
If your budget lives buried in an app, it's never open, it's invisible, you're probably not going to make anything happen. So, two really big principles from Atomic Habits are make it obvious and make it easy. Okay. Put your budget where you'll see it consistently. All right, Devin, let's talk about how we can make it obvious.
So, in order to make it obvious, have the app on your home screen. Review the transactions, whether it be daily, weekly, or monthly, whatever you find works best for you. On the calendar, if you're doing a review of transactions, maybe do it bi weekly or once per month, or put a sticky note on the frizz to check your budget before buying. I like a whiteboard on my desk where I just put up a couple things that I'm going to look at financially every week, and I cross them off as I go. Another option is the phone wallpaper. So you can also put monthly savings target on your phone wallpaper as well.
Let's talk about make it easy. And that's designing your environment around you to support you, not just relying on willpower, not relying on motivation. And so, one app, and again, not sponsored, Monarch, if you want to sponsor us, that'd be great. We're down. But one app my wife and I use is called Monarch. And it's a great app because it automates a lot of things. And we always love automation in our financial life. And so, for example, it'll automate grocery transactions to go in a grocery category, eating out transactions to go in eating out, etc. And we actually have a 50% promo code in the description of the episode. So if you click on that, normally it's $100 a year, you can get it for $50 a year. But even if you don't want to spend the money, you could still do Google Sheets, Excel. Every dollar has a free app that you can use as well if you're not looking to spend money. The importance of automating things, however you choose to do it, is just unbelievable with wealth building because you never have to think about it. With your credit cards, if you have your credit cards to auto pay every month, you don't have to think about paying them off every month. They just do it. Obviously, you just have to make sure you're not spending more than you have in your checking account, but that's something you should be monitoring anyway. And so, one of the last tools that's really helpful for especially busy healthcare schedules is habit stacking. I love this concept from Atomic Habits. And so, how does that work, Devin? How do we habit stack something?
Essentially, it's after I already do something, I'm going to attach a new habit to that previous good habit.
And it's usually something really small, right? So let's give some examples for healthcare professionals. After you get paid, you could review transactions for 20 minutes. Another one is after I brew my coffee in the morning, I'll open my budget app for 2 minutes. And if you're an everyday type of person with your finances, that's a great way to do it because you maybe check the transactions from the day before, organize them in 2 minutes, and you're done. And then you just wait until the next day. It's not time specific, it's habit specific. Devin, what are some other examples of what you think we could do to habit stack things?
I definitely like your habit of the sip the coffee in the morning and check finances. Like I
Yeah.
immediately will open up my apps and look at the stock market, check my bank accounts, and then check my credit cards. Other ways that we can do that is after I pay bills, I'll update my savings contributions. Another big thing is using consistent anchor habits like brushing your teeth, maybe doing a little morning workout before you check your finances. Always remembering to focus on yourself, because in order to take care of others, you have to take care of yourself first. And that's huge, because that will also bring joy to your life because you feel accomplished in the mornings before you head to work.
Habit stacking is so cool because it doesn't depend on a time. It depends on an event like brushing your teeth or having coffee. Because maybe your morning coffee is actually at 8 p.m. because you're a night shift worker, right? It's not the time that matters, it's the specific habit. Well, let's talk a little bit about the 2 minute rule, Devon. What do we got as far as that concerns?
So many people basically quit because they think habits have been either too big or too large at scale.
Yeah. I think that's where people get caught up in the New Year's resolution thing where they think, I have to be a millionaire by age 35 or something. And hey, if that's achievable, great. But starting with something so much smaller is often more achievable. And so the 2 minute rule says make it so easy that you can't say no. Start so small that it feels almost impossible to skip.
Yeah, showing up for 2 minutes could be like categorizing or tracking one transaction in your budget app, maybe paying off a credit card, or doing a subscription audit and asking yourself, are there any of these subscriptions that we could completely remove and get some money back on the table?
Yeah, showing up consistently for 2 minutes, it builds great momentum. If you combine a 2 minute habit with habit stacking, you got some great effects. So, for example, if you punch in 2 minutes of transactions after brushing your teeth, paying off a credit card right after a workout. Again, we would recommend automating things, but some people get weird feelings or don't want to automate things. I honestly don't know why. Makes your life so much easier. But if you're not someone who wants to automate, then stacking it after a workout.
Yeah, I think sometimes it may just be a control kind of habit, right? I want to pay it off today at this time
Yeah.
versus if it's automatically taken out, right? You're not in control of when that
Yeah.
exactly is taken out.
The statement is going to be from the month before. And so maybe at the end of the month, they like everything to be balanced and just paid off. And I get that. So I could see that.
I like to pay my credit card usually on the first of the month. So it feels like it's clean slate and I can track
Yep.
the expenses a lot easier each
Yeah.
month. The biggest takeaway is always choosing the consistency over perfection, right? So once you build that momentum, it's easier to add another step for tomorrow. Maybe categorize your expenses or schedule your automated savings. And remember to stack your daily consistencies so they can boost your health and wealth. Think about your daily mindset and what can it handle on a consistent basis each day? Can you handle 5 to 10 minutes of looking at your finances, or is it the 2 minutes per day that is all you can handle? Personally, I do like to focus on my health before I focus on my wealth. So like I said, I'll have a cup of coffee. I may check a couple things, but in order to really truly do a deep dive on my finances, I need like a 20-minute workout. And so I set myself up to be happy when I'm going into the looking at this stuff so I could truly focus calmly on my budget for up to 20 minutes if needed.
Yeah, and I love the focus on the health before the wealth. It's almost like a little plug for Health and Wealth Hawaii. That is Devon's Instagram, where he's posting some great content, personal finance related. So check him out. I do love that focus, and me and my wife are the same way. We have a big focus on our physical health, our spiritual health. A lot of times in the mornings, our biggest thing actually isn't finances, but it's us getting up early enough to read our Bibles for 20, 30 minutes and get into the Word of God because that's a priority for us. Health, absolutely. And even just working out after work. And it's just so important. And for people looking at their finances specifically, everyone's a little bit different. I have a client right now who is like, I don't want to look at my finances more than once a month. I said, cool. I don't really think you have to. But I think once a month is the bare minimum. His preference is he sits down for about an hour and a half and kind of plugs everything in, looks at his numbers from the month before, and then forecasts, hey, what do we have going on the next month? And that's it. And so if that's your strategy, great. That's totally fine. Maybe you're more of a biweekly person. Maybe it's daily or weekly. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that you just set some system that's repeatable and that you can get going now. Okay. Don't wait. This is the master of showing up principle. Showing up builds consistency. Consistency builds confidence, and confidence drives really huge wins, millionaire habits, and great financial independence in the long run. And so, guys, if you're listening to this on your commute, we want you to just pause for a second. You can pause the podcast and just consider this question.
Think about a financial habit you tried to start this year and you've already stopped that financial habit.
We want you to think about maybe why you stopped it, what happened. Was it motivation? Was it emotion? And now we want you to shrink it way down. What is the 2-minute version of this habit or this goal that you could restart this week? Now make a conscious decision to make a change. Here's a reset formula for healthcare professionals who are exhausted, working 12-hour shifts, but they still want progress. First, shrink the habit, make it so small that it can't fail, especially if it's something you've already pursued. Second, attach it to something that you already do, brushing your teeth, grabbing coffee, clocking out from work. Lastly, design your environment to make the good choice the obvious one. And listen, if you're sitting there thinking, I know what I should do, I just don't know how to start, starting is often one of the most challenging things. That's exactly why we do one-on-one coaching, to help people walk through their finances. We help students as they're going through their program, how to minimize their debt. And so if that's something that you guys are needing, healthcare professionals, they really don't need more generic financial advice. They need a system that fits your schedule, your debt, your income, and your stress level. So we can help you build a simple, realistic financial system, automate what matters, and create habits that survive even after 12-hour shifts. So if you want clarity instead of confusion, and you've tried things for years and nothing's worked, then check out our scheduling link in the description, thefiscalclinician.com. My website is linked in there. There's a booking tab in the top right you can click on. If you want to find out more, you can book a free 15-minute consult to see if coaching could be right for you. And again, we'd love to help build great habits for you so you can retire a millionaire.
And just remember that your financial system should support your life in healthcare, not compete with it. You're busy, you're tired, you're juggling a lot, you're seeing a ton of patients. Your habits and your tools should make money easier, not more stressful, so you can focus on your career, but also focus on yourself, your health, and your wealth. And just remember the couple steps that we talked about today: shrink the habit, stack the habit, make it obvious, and then make it easy.
If this episode helped you reset your mindset, do us a favor, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode that's coming out. Every other week, we break down money for healthcare professionals in a way that's simple, practical, and built for real life, not for perfect conditions.
And if you know another clinician who feels behind financially right now, send this episode to them and let's all reset together.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Fiscal Clinician Podcast, and we're so excited to see you guys next week.